The Galactic Military Academy buzzed with nervous energy as students from across 17 different species gathered in the main lecture hall. Commander Zethkar, a towering Vraxian with 4 arms and crystalline skin, stood at the podium reviewing his notes. Today's lesson would cover combat effectiveness ratings across member species of the Galactic Union. Settle down, cadets, Zethkar's voice boomed through the hall's translation systems. His mandibles clicked in what passed for a smile among his kind. Today we examine kill ratios in ground combat situations. A young Altarian cadet, her blue-scaled hand raised high, spoke up. Commander, why do we need to study ancient combat statistics? Most conflicts are resolved through orbital bombardment or diplomatic channels now. An excellent question, Cadet Velterra. Understanding individual combat effectiveness helps us appreciate why certain species excel in specific military roles. Zethkar activated the holographic display behind him, showing various alien forms. Let's begin with the Korthak shock troops. The display showed a heavily muscled, 8-foot-tall humanoid with natural armor plating. Korthak warriors average a kill ratio of 1.3 to 1 in direct combat. Their natural armor and aggressive nature make them formidable frontline fighters. Murmurs of appreciation rippled through the crowd. The 3 Korthak cadets in attendance puffed out their chests with pride. Next, we have the Theshan Rangers. The hologram shifted to show a lithe, 4-armed being with enhanced sensory organs. Their superior reflexes and multi-limb coordination give them a kill ratio of 2.1 to 1. They excel at precision strikes and guerrilla warfare. The statistics continued. Vraxian Heavy Guard, 1.8 to 1. Zephyrian Skyhunters, 2.4 to 1. Narathipe Scion Warriors, 2.7 to 1. Each species had evolved specific advantages that made them deadly in their own way. Now, Zethkar paused dramatically, we come to humanity's contribution to our military forces. The hologram changed to show a relatively small, bipedal creature with no visible natural weapons or armor. Many cadets leaned forward, curious about the newest members of the Galactic Union. Humans joined our alliance only 50 standard years ago. At first glance, they appear unremarkable. No natural armor, no enhanced reflexes, no psionics abilities, no multiple limbs for weapon handling. Average height of 1.7 meters, average weight of 70 kilograms. Quite fragile compared to most of our warrior species. A Draknori cadet, his reptilian features twisted in confusion, raised his clawed hand. Commander, if humans are so physically unremarkable, why include them in military statistics at all? Surely they're better suited for support roles or technical positions? Zethkar's 4 eyes glittered with something that might have been amusement. Cadet Hexstar, that's precisely what we assumed when humans first requested to contribute ground forces to our military. In fact, the Joint Defense Council nearly rejected their application entirely. The hall fell silent. The idea of rejecting a species' military contribution was nearly unthinkable in the Union's egalitarian structure. However, Zethkar continued, the humans insisted on demonstrating their capabilities. They requested permission to send a single unit to assist in the Outer Rim conflict against the Zekthari raiders. Every cadet knew about the Outer Rim conflict. The insectoid Zekthari had been terrorizing shipping lanes for months, their natural exoskeletons and hive mind tactics making them nearly impossible to defeat in ground combat. 3 different Union task forces had failed to dislodge them from their asteroid bases. A single human unit was deployed to asteroid K7, where approximately 300 Zekthari warriors had fortified themselves in mining tunnels. The tactical situation was considered impossible without massive casualties or total orbital destruction of the facility. Zethkar paused, letting the weight of those numbers sink in. 300 Zekthari warriors, each with natural armor and mandibles capable of crushing steel, defending prepared positions in narrow tunnels where superior numbers meant nothing. The human unit consisted of 32 soldiers, led by a Sergeant Martinez. Standard Union doctrine would have required at least 500 troops for such an assault, with expected casualties exceeding 60%. The silence in the hall was complete now. Even the usually chattering Pixari had stopped their constant wing buzzing. The assault began at 0600 hours, local time. By 1400 hours, the facility was completely secure. Cadet Velterra's voice was barely a whisper. How many human casualties, Commander? Zethkar's mandibles clicked in what his students had learned was his version of a grin. That, Cadet Velterra, is where our understanding of warfare began to change forever. The lecture hall remained silent as Commander Zethkar activated a detailed tactical display. The three-dimensional hologram showed the asteroid mining facility where the human unit had engaged the Zekthari raiders. Tunnels twisted through the rock like veins, each passage marked with defensive positions and kill zones. The humans called their assault technique room clearing, Zethkar explained, manipulating the display to show the soldiers' advance. Rather than the standard Union tactic of corridor suppression with energy weapons, they employed something called explosive breaching followed by coordinated small unit tactics. A Korthak cadet, his armor plates rattling with agitation, interrupted. "Commander, surely you mean they used heavy artillery or orbital support? No infantry unit could clear prepared positions that quickly." "Negative, Cadet Throckmar. The humans specifically requested no orbital or artillery support. They claimed such assistance would be overkill for the situation." Zethkar's translation of the human term caused confused murmurs throughout the hall. The concept of voluntary restraint in combat was foreign to most species present. The holographic display zoomed in on the first tunnel breach. At exactly 0600 hours, human soldiers designated as Marines began their assault. They moved in units of 4, using portable explosive charges to create new entrances rather than following existing passages. The animation showed small figures advancing through clouds of dust and debris. Where Union forces would typically advance in line formation with energy shields, the humans moved in a pattern that seemed almost random to alien observers. Each 4-soldier unit moved independently but maintained constant communication with others. When they encountered Zekthari defenders, they employed what they called combined arms tactics using projectile weapons, explosive devices, and close combat techniques. Cadet Velterra raised her hand again. "Commander, projectile weapons? Surely they used plasma rifles or particle beam weapons like civilized forces?" The humans arrived with weapons that fired solid metal projectiles at extremely high velocity. Their standard rifle fires a 5.56 mm metal slug at 990 meters per second. Zethkar paused for effect. They also carried weapons firing 7.62 mm projectiles for long-range work and something they called 40 Mike for fortified positions. The alien cadets exchanged glances of disbelief. Solid projectiles were considered primitive by galactic standards, relics from pre-spaceflight civilizations. Furthermore, Zethkar continued, they carried no energy shields, no powered armor, no integrated computer targeting systems. Each soldier wore simple fabric and ceramic protection they called body armor and relied on organic sensory input for target acquisition. A Theshan cadet's forearms gestured in confusion. How could such primitive equipment possibly succeed where advanced Union forces failed? The holographic display shifted to show combat recordings from the human soldiers' helmet cameras. The footage was grainy and shaky, nothing like the stable, computer-enhanced combat feeds other species used. "Watch carefully," Zethkar instructed as the recording played. The view showed a human soldier's perspective as his team approached a Zekthari defensive position. The aliens' chitinous forms were barely visible in the shadows of the tunnel. Suddenly, the scene exploded into chaos. The humans moved with fluid precision, their weapons firing in controlled bursts. The distinctive crack of their projectile weapons echoed through the speakers. A Zekthari warrior, its natural armor gleaming, charged toward the camera position with mandibles extended. Instead of retreating or calling for support, the human soldier stepped forward, dodging the creature's attack with minimal movement. His weapon swung around in a tight arc, and 3 rapid shots punched through the Zekthari's head carapace. The creature collapsed instantly. "Pause recording," Zethkar commanded. The image froze with the dead Zekthari at the human's feet. Analysis of this engagement reveals several remarkable factors. First, the human soldier's reaction time from threat identification to target elimination, 0.3 seconds. Gasps echoed through the hall. Even enhanced Theshan reflexes rarely achieved anything under 0.5 seconds. Second, weapon accuracy at close range, 100% hit rate on vital target areas. Third, tactical movement. Observe how the soldier positioned himself to engage the target while maintaining cover from additional threats. The recording resumed, showing the rest of the firefight. The humans moved through the Zekthari position like a deadly dance, each soldier covering others while advancing. Their projectile weapons punched through alien armor with devastating effectiveness. The most remarkable aspect, Zethkar noted, was their communication during combat. Listen carefully to the audio feed. Human voices crackled through the speakers, speaking in calm, professional tones despite the chaos around them. Tango down, 3 o'clock. Moving to breach point 2. Cover me. Reloading. Clear left. Frag out. These soldiers maintained perfect coordination while under direct fire from superior numbers of heavily armored opponents. They shared information, coordinated movements, and adapted tactics in real time without computer assistance. A Pixari cadet's wings buzzed nervously. Commander, this must be an exceptional unit. Surely not all human soldiers perform at this level? Zethkar's mandibles clicked in what his students recognized as anticipation. Actually, Cadet Zixari, this unit was considered average by human military standards. The Marines who conducted this assault had received only standard infantry training. The silence that followed this statement was profound. The implications were staggering. Commander Zethkar observed the stunned faces of his cadets with satisfaction. The revelation that the human soldiers in the recording represented merely average performance had clearly shaken their understanding of galactic military hierarchies. Perhaps, he continued, you're wondering how we verified the humans' claims about this being a standard unit performance. The holographic display shifted to show a personnel roster. 32 names appeared, each accompanied by service records and photographs of remarkably young-looking humans. Sergeant Martinez, unit leader, age 24 standard years. 2 years of military service. Corporal Jackson, age 22, 18 months service. Private Thompson, age 19, 6 months service. Zethkar highlighted several entries. The average age of this standard unit was 21.7 standard years, with mean service time of 14 months. A collective intake of breath swept the hall. Most galactic species required decades of training to produce competent soldiers, and centuries to develop true warriors. The human military organization they call Marines produces soldiers of this caliber in a training period lasting 4 months. Zethkar paused, allowing the implications to sink in. 4 months. Cadet Throckmar's armor plates clattered as he shifted uncomfortably. Impossible. My people require 20 years of conditioning just to achieve basic combat proficiency. The humans provided extensive documentation of their training methods. Would you like to review their basic combat preparation? A new hologram appeared, showing young humans engaged in various exercises. They ran long distances carrying heavy equipment, practiced hand-to-hand combat, and trained with their weapons under simulated stress conditions. Human basic military training focuses on 3 primary areas: physical conditioning, weapons proficiency, and what they term mental toughness. The physical training alone would challenge most galactic species. The display showed humans carrying equipment weighing up to 40% of their body weight across varied terrain. They climbed vertical surfaces, crawled through mud, and performed complex exercises while exhausted. Observe their endurance capabilities, Zethkar noted as the recording showed humans running continuously for over an hour while carrying full combat gear. These are not enhanced individuals. This represents baseline human physical capability after training. A Zephyrian cadet, her wing membranes fluttering with agitation, spoke up. Commander, their equipment appears incredibly primitive. Surely advanced species could overwhelm them with superior technology? An interesting hypothesis, Cadet Silpari. Let's examine a different engagement. The holographic display switched to another battlefield scenario. 3 months after the asteroid incident, human Marines encountered hegemony forces on Kepler 442b. The new display showed a mountainous landscape where human soldiers faced off against the galaxy's most technologically advanced military force. Hegemony troops wore powered armor, carried plasma weapons, and had integrated targeting computers linked to orbital surveillance platforms. 2 squads of Marines, 24 soldiers total, were tasked with holding a strategic pass against a hegemony assault force of 200 troops. The tactical display showed the overwhelming disparity in numbers and equipment. The hegemony force included battlesuits, hover tanks, and drone support. Combat footage began playing, showing the human perspective of the engagement. The Marines had positioned themselves among rocky outcroppings, their primitive projectile weapons trained on the approach routes. Notice their positioning, Zethkar commented as the recording showed Marines selecting firing positions with overlapping fields of view. They didn't attempt to match the hegemony's technological advantages. Instead, they leveraged terrain and tactics. The battle erupted as hegemony forces advanced up the mountain pass. Their plasma weapons lit up the landscape, but the Marines remained hidden until the enemy forces reached predetermined positions. Now watch carefully, Zethkar instructed. Observe how they coordinate their fire. The Marines opened fire simultaneously, their weapons targeting the joints and sensor arrays of the hegemony battlesuits. While their projectiles couldn't penetrate the armor directly, they systematically disabled weapon systems and mobility components. The humans identified and exploited weaknesses in supposedly superior equipment. Their projectile weapons, considered primitive, proved remarkably effective against plasma weapon power cells and sensor clusters. The footage showed hegemony troops stumbling blind as their sensors failed, their powered armor becoming burdens rather than assets. Marines emerged from concealed positions to engage with close-range weapons and explosive devices. The engagement lasted 3 hours and 17 minutes, Zethkar reported. Final casualty count: hegemony forces, 187 killed, 13 wounded. Human Marines, 2 wounded, 0 killed. The number hung in the air like a challenge to everything the cadets thought they knew about warfare. How is such a result possible? Cadet Valterra's voice was barely a whisper. Human military doctrine emphasizes adaptability, initiative, and what they call thinking outside the box, Zethkar explained. When faced with superior technology, they don't attempt to match it. They find ways to negate its advantages. The display showed human training exercises where soldiers learned to fight in various environments against different types of enemies. They practiced combat in zero gravity, underwater, in toxic atmospheres, and against opponents with superior technology. Most remarkably, Zethkar continued, humans appear to thrive under pressure that would paralyze other species. Their performance actually improves as situations become more desperate. New footage showed Marines conducting a fighting retreat across a devastated urban landscape, carrying wounded comrades while under heavy fire. Despite the chaos, their movements remained coordinated and purposeful. Military psychologists have identified this phenomenon as uniquely human. They call it rising to the occasion. Under extreme stress, humans don't break down, they adapt and overcome. A Draknori cadet raised his claw uncertainly. Commander, surely there must be some limit to their capabilities? Some weakness we can identify? Commander Zethkar's crystalline features shifted into what passed for contemplation among his species. The Draknori cadet's question about human limitations had touched on something that kept military analysts across the galaxy awake at night. Cadet Hexstar asks about human weaknesses. That question led to the most comprehensive military study in galactic history. The holographic display shifted to show a massive database filled with combat reports, psychological profiles, and tactical analyses. Every major military power has attempted to identify exploitable human vulnerabilities. A new series of battle recordings began playing, showing humans in various combat situations. Desert warfare, Arctic conditions, jungle environments, space-based combat, underwater operations. In every scenario, the small, seemingly fragile humans adapted and prevailed against opponents who should have had overwhelming advantages. The Vraxian High Command spent 2 years analyzing human combat psychology. They identified what they believed to be a critical flaw: humans formed strong emotional attachments to their fellow soldiers. The display showed Marines carrying wounded comrades under fire, often at great personal risk. Our strategists theorized that targeting human emotional bonds would cause unit cohesion to collapse. Zethkar's tone carried a note of dark humor. The subsequent field test of this theory produced unexpected results. New footage appeared, showing a human patrol pinned down in a rocky canyon. Enemy forces had wounded several Marines and were using them as bait, expecting the humans to break cover for rescue attempts. Watch carefully, Zethkar instructed. The human response to this psychological warfare. Instead of panic or retreat, the Marines became more focused and determined. They coordinated a complex flanking maneuver while under fire, using explosives to create new cover positions and systematically eliminating enemy fighters. When humans believe their companions are in danger, they don't become weaker. They become exponentially more dangerous. The recording showed Marines advancing through enemy fire with methodical precision, their weapons firing with mechanical accuracy. This engagement resulted in the complete elimination of 47 enemy combatants by 8 human soldiers. A Theshan cadet's forearms trembled. They become more effective when threatened? Military xenopsychologists have termed this phenomenon protective aggression. Humans possess an evolutionary trait that increases combat effectiveness when defending others they consider part of their group. Zethkar highlighted sections of the psychological reports. This trait appears to override normal self-preservation instincts. The display showed another engagement where a single wounded Marine held off an entire enemy squad while his teammates evacuated casualties. Despite being outgunned and outnumbered, he maintained accurate fire for over 20 minutes before reinforcements arrived. Furthermore, Zethkar continued, humans display remarkable innovation under pressure. When conventional tactics fail, they improvise solutions that often defy military doctrine entirely. A recording played showing Marines using construction equipment as improvised weapons, turning mining charges into tactical explosives, and employing civilian vehicles as mobile cover platforms. In one sequence, a Marine medic repurposed medical equipment to create an electromagnetic pulse that disabled enemy electronics. Human military training emphasizes individual initiative and creative problem-solving. When their standard equipment fails or proves inadequate, they manufacture solutions from available materials. The footage showed Marines disassembling captured alien weapons and combining components with their own equipment. They created hybrid weapon systems that shouldn't have worked but somehow proved devastatingly effective. This adaptability extends to their tactical doctrine. Humans don't follow rigid battle plans. They treat military strategy as a framework for improvisation rather than a script to follow. A new tactical display showed the famous Battle of Proxima Station, where human Marines defended a space facility against overwhelming odds. The official defense plan called for a fighting retreat through 3 defensive sectors over 48 hours. The Marines held the station for 6 days using tactics that violated every principle of conventional warfare. The display showed their movements throughout the facility as they turned maintenance shafts into attack routes and cargo holds into kill zones. They fought in 3 dimensions, used civilian infrastructure as weapons platforms, and somehow turned a defensive action into an offensive victory. Cadet Velterra raised her hand hesitantly. "Commander, how do we counter such unpredictability?" "That question led to the establishment of the Human Studies Department at this very academy," Zethkar replied. 3 years of intensive research produced a classified report that fundamentally changed galactic military doctrine. The holographic display shifted to show sanitized excerpts from the report. Key findings appeared in stark text: human combat effectiveness increases under adverse conditions. Standard psychological warfare proves counterproductive. Technological superiority provides minimal advantage. The report's conclusion was simple: the most effective strategy when facing human Marines is to avoid engagement entirely. Stunned silence filled the lecture hall. The idea that any species could be so militarily effective that avoidance became the preferred strategy was unprecedented in galactic history. This leads us to today's primary lesson, Zethkar announced, manipulating the holographic display to show a simple numerical readout. You asked about kill ratios. Based on comprehensive analysis of 847 combat engagements over the past 3 years, we have calculated the average kill ratio for a single human Marine. The number appeared in the center of the display, glowing with soft blue light. Every cadet leaned forward to read the figure that would redefine their understanding of warfare. The average kill ratio of a single Earth Marine, Zethkar announced with ceremonial gravity, is 47.3 to 1. The hall erupted in chaos as cadets from across 17 species tried to process this impossible statistic. The cacophony of shocked voices in the lecture hall gradually subsided as Commander Zethkar raised all 4 of his arms for silence. The number 47.3 to 1 still glowed on the holographic display, casting an eerie blue light across the stunned faces of cadets from 17 different species. Before you question the accuracy of this data, Zethkar began, his voice cutting through the remaining whispers, understand that these statistics have been verified by independent analysis from every major military power in the galaxy. The hegemony, the Korthak Empire, even the enigmatic observers have confirmed these numbers. A Pixari cadet's wings buzzed frantically as she spoke. "Commander, such numbers are impossible. No species achieves kill ratios above 5 to 1 except in extremely specialized circumstances." Which brings us to the most disturbing aspect of human military capability, Zethkar replied, manipulating the display to show a breakdown of the statistics. These numbers represent average performance across all engagement types. Urban warfare, space combat, defensive actions, assault operations, reconnaissance missions. In specialized circumstances, the ratios become truly staggering. New figures appeared: Marine snipers 127 to 1. Special Operations Forces 198 to 1. Something called Force Reconnaissance 312 to 1. Furthermore, Zethkar continued as the hall fell silent again, these statistics only account for direct combat eliminations. They don't include what humans call force multiplier effects. The holographic display showed a tactical map of the Kepler system Liberation, where human Marines had trained local resistance forces. Red markers indicated enemy positions before human involvement, while blue markers showed the situation 6 months later. 12 human Marines spent half a standard year training indigenous forces on 3 different worlds. The result was the complete collapse of occupying forces across an entire star system. Zethkar zoomed in on specific battle sites. The humans didn't just fight. They created armies. A Korthak cadet's armor plates rattled as he shifted uncomfortably. How do they train others to achieve such effectiveness? Human military doctrine emphasizes what they call teaching a man to fish rather than giving him a fish, Zethkar explained, though the translation software struggled with the human idiom. They don't just provide firepower. They transfer knowledge, tactics, and, most importantly, mindset. Footage played showing human Marines working with Altarian civilians, teaching them everything from basic marksmanship to complex tactical coordination. The humans demonstrated infinite patience, breaking down complex military concepts into simple, understandable components. Observe their teaching methodology, Zethkar noted as the recording showed a human sergeant explaining room clearing techniques to a group of civilians. They don't simply give orders. They explain the reasoning behind every action, ensuring their students understand not just what to do, but why to do it. The display showed before and after footage of the trained resistance forces. Initially disorganized and poorly equipped, they gradually evolved into coordinated fighting units that moved with recognizable human tactical precision. Within months, forces trained by human Marines were achieving kill ratios approaching 15 to 1 against professional military units. Zethkar let this sink in before continuing. The humans had essentially created smaller versions of themselves. Cadet Velterra raised her hand, her voice trembling slightly. Commander, what does this mean for the future of galactic warfare? An excellent question, and one that led to the Treaty of Titan signed just last month. Zethkar activated a new section of the display showing a formal document with signatures from every major galactic power. The Human Limitation Accords. The treaty details appeared in simplified text. No human military units larger than company strength would be deployed without unanimous consent from the Galactic Council. Human military advisors would be limited to defensive operations only. Most significantly, human Marines would not be stationed in systems containing more than one habitable world. The galaxy's military powers realized something unprecedented, Zethkar explained. Humans don't just win battles. They fundamentally alter the strategic balance wherever they're deployed. A Draknori cadet raised his claw. But, surely this violates human sovereignty? How do they accept such limitations? That brings us to perhaps the most remarkable aspect of human nature, Zethkar replied, his mandibles clicking with what might have been admiration. When presented with the treaty, human leadership's response was immediate agreement. New footage showed the human ambassador addressing the Galactic Council. The small, unremarkable figure spoke with quiet confidence. We understand the concerns of our galactic neighbors. Earth agrees to these limitations because we have no desire to destabilize the existing order. We joined the Union for cooperation, not conquest. The humans voluntarily accepted restrictions on their military deployment because they recognized that their capabilities threatened galactic stability. Zethkar paused, studying his stunned students. They chose diplomatic restraint over military advantage. The display showed human Marines being reassigned from combat operations to humanitarian missions, disaster relief, and training roles. Despite their incredible combat effectiveness, they seemed genuinely content with peacekeeping duties. This decision revealed something that our xenopsychologists still struggle to understand. Humans view their military power as a tool for protection rather than domination. Zethkar manipulated the display to show humanitarian operations where human Marines worked alongside civilian agencies to provide aid to devastated worlds. The same soldiers who achieve impossible kill ratios in combat display equal dedication to saving lives and rebuilding communities. Footage showed Marines distributing food, constructing shelter, and providing medical aid to alien civilians. A Theshan cadet's forearms gestured in confusion. They limit themselves voluntarily? Perhaps, Zethkar concluded, that's what makes them most dangerous of all. A species that possesses overwhelming military capability but chooses restraint represents something entirely new in galactic history. The holographic display returned to the central statistic, 47.3 to 1. But, now the number seemed less like a threat and more like a reminder of the responsibility that came with such power. Your assignment for next week, Zethkar announced as cadets began gathering their materials, is to analyze how human military philosophy might influence future galactic security doctrine. Consider not just their tactical capabilities, but their strategic wisdom. As the hall emptied, cadets from 17 different species left with a new understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy. The small, seemingly unremarkable humans had proven that true strength lay not just in the ability to win wars,